Hey everyone, it's Broncos Central and I am Nathan McKenzie, and this is the review of the game between New Zealand Warriors and the Brisbane Broncos. Now, this was a tough game to watch. The first half was atrocious. Yes, I am going to talk about the ref a lot in this game. I hate to say it. I don't know what it is, but every time I see Ashley Klein and a Queensland team, it just seems that the penalties always go to the opposition side. I know a lot of New Zealand Warriors supporters will be not saying the same thing, and I totally understand that, being a supporter of your team. Yes, a lot of the penalties were deserved, but there are a lot of 50-50 calls that I think could have gone our way, but also some sin binning that should have happened and some other things. But anyway, we'll go into it in a minute. In saying that, the Warriors definitely deserve the win, especially after losing Tanner Boyd so early on in that game. It's very sad to see that, he was up there for contender for the Queensland spot. Whether or not he would have got named, I'm not sure. They get named tomorrow morning. But, they just wanted the game more. First 15 minutes of all-out attack on our line. We're defending pretty well for that first 15 minutes. But again, I think it just 22-0 at half time. A lot of penalties went against us. We held the ball a lot better this time round, especially in the conditions. So that wasn't the problem this week. This week was basically just discipline. With that forward pack, as I knew, if you go back and watch the preview, that's the one thing I was worried about, was the Warriors forward pack, and they dominated us. And it wasn't necessarily anything else, but just they dominated. They're running through the middle. Our forward pack just couldn't stand up with them. If you look at some of my social media channels, I've pinpointed a couple of people in our team that I think need to work on their defence. Not necessarily the defence, but definitely the options, especially on the try line itself. I won't name it in this forum. Like I said, you can go back to my social media channels and have a look at some of the players I was talking about. And I think I'm not blaming them at all. It's just, I think that there's constant changeover of players, especially for these players coming from reserve grade up. Taught one structure, all of a sudden they're meant to change into this one. And it's not like all the players go back to reserve grade, play the same brand of football the Broncos do. They have different coaches, different strategies, and sometimes it's just not that easy to come into a side and expect to do exactly what the playing group does. After half time, we actually started off really well, but then we just gave back 2 cheap tries, which was actually very embarrassing. But I think a lot of players need to have a hard look at themselves, especially our senior players. I think Reece Walsh played a really poor game. He actually made a lot of errors. I know he tried hard, but some of his errors were pretty poor. Ezra Mann was another one. Even listening to the Fox commentary, he had one run pretty much for the first 60 minutes, and then he actually started running. As soon as he started running the ball, you just see how dangerous he can be. I think this having this week off next week will be the best thing that can happen to this team. I know we'll have a couple of players chosen for State of Origin. I think Paddy Carrigan's actually the only one that will be picked. There's rumours going around that Reece won't even make the side. If he is, he'll be, on the extended bench, being 18th, 19th, so that could benefit Queensland if someone goes down. That's another conversation in itself. We'll just go through the stats game through NRL.com. The Warriors had 55% of the possession. Possession rate was actually very similar to both sides. The Warriors had 87%, Broncos had 81. Basically, you just look at the running meters. Like, Warriors made close to 1,800 meters. We were 400 meters below them. The post-contact meters is a big one. They almost did 150 meters more than we did. Line breaks are pretty similar, but just going through the stats down there. It's just discipline that really cost us in the long run. Take nothing away against the Warriors. They played really well. Like I said, they lost their halfback in the first 15 minutes, and I actually thought, from a Broncos point of view, I thought this was actually going to help us, especially with didn't think their attack was going to be as good as what it was. And like I said, some of their tries were pretty slack in the first half, and when Paddy got that sin bin, which I don't understand why. Like, I get that there was a couple of penalties on the trot. I just think the referee, I know he was trying to enforce discipline within the team, but I just don't think that was necessary in that instance. If you listen to all the commentaries, they said exactly the same thing, and unfortunately they scored 2 tries when that happened. Saying, the Warriors got a sin bin themselves. I think personally it was a sin bin. If you look at the winger coming in, he went in with force. He went in with intent. Yes, it came off the ball and slipped onto his head, so that was an accident. But still, you look at his arm, you look at the intent that he came in with that ball, and that was always going to be 10 in the bin. In the second half, there was an instance where we got a breakaway, and we were held down, and referee went 6 again, but that should have been a sin bin. Will we have come on and win, get some more tries? I'm not sure. Our attack was very dismal, very similar to last week. We just looked like a team that hadn't played together before. And I just think with a lot of our players missing, you got to remember, all these players were missing. We're in the pre-season, they train together every single week for months on end, and have all these other players come in. I think after Origin will be good. Tony Staggs will be back in the centres. I think young Philip Coates did really well on debut. Some of those cutout passes that he caught from Reece Walsh were amazing. set up one of the Adam Reynolds tries was pretty good. We ran down the sideline, threw it back inside. Yes, it was a luck ball when it bounced, but still you have to make your own luck in this game. But yeah, I think overall we just saw, again, too much defence. It doesn't matter how fit you are, if you just keep defending, the opposition's going to score. I think those 2 tries after half time as well, actually, we lost the game. I think we just tried to, because Warriors were down to 12, I think we tried to, when we scored that first try after half time, I just think Reece tried to do too much, especially off the kickoff. So not the kickoff, off the kick, and he just tried to put Shipshape in a hole, but unfortunately never eventuated, and they scored a try. And then the try after that, it was very, Ben told you, understand the referee called him offside, but I would have given away the penalty. The fact that he stepped back and just basically left open a hole, and the Warriors player ran through, and then they scored a try. And then that was 2 tries in the space of 5 minutes. And rather than being 22 points down, we're then 28 points. Yeah, that's I think what ended up killing us in the long run. But overall, like I said, Warriors deserved the win. Disappointing for the Broncos, but I think having the week off will be really good. And coming back the following week, we'll play the Dragons. To be honest, the Dragons actually did well tonight. I don't think Penrith come out of second gear, and if you actually look at the stats, Dragons had a lot more ball than they did, and it just goes to show if you can defend well, then you'll beat the Dragons. But yeah, like I said, I think having this week off will benefit us, and I think coming back after Origin, and if it's just Paddy backing up, then I think we'll be okay moving forward. But overall, congratulations Warriors, you deserve to win. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.